What's up, YouTube? It's time for a review of the new Ringworm record, Snake Church, out 2 Fridays ago now, July 29th. So, Ringworm, Cleveland hardcore band that's been around for over 25 years now. They kicked around the underground a bit in the early 90s, took a break, kind of grouped in the late 90s, and they've been putting out material consistently ever since. This new record, Snake Church, is their 8th full-length now, and I was really looking forward to checking it out because I very clearly remember how much hype there was around Hammer of the Witch, their last record in 2014, and I was anxious to see if they were going to be able to produce a strong follow-up. Now, the style Ringworm is known for, the style that they continue to deliver on Snake Church, I labeled them a hardcore band, but metalcore, crossover thrash, those are more accurate terms. Really, ever since Suicidal Tendencies and D.R.I. and those type of bands started incorporating thrash metal riffs into hardcore punk, metal and hardcore have become so intertwined that it's more common to hear the two genres coexisting than it is to just hear a plain old hardcore punk record. The boundaries nowadays are so blurred, and Snake Church is no exception. There's thrash metal's fingerprints all over this thing. There's some groove metal. There's, of course, some classic New York hardcore sounds in here. It's all there. The record kicks off with the title track, which the opening groove to this song is pure Pantera 90% of the way, but then it's peppered with extreme metal elements like tremolo pick guitars and hammering double bass. This is a track that goes right for the throat and never really lets up. It actually gains momentum by getting increasingly dizzying and frantic in that first verse before eventually launching into this up-tempo Anthrax-style bridge section at like the 2-minute 30-second mark. It's a ripping track that gives the album instant momentum before you're even 2 tracks in, which is crucial for a record that's only 33 minutes long if you exclude the 2 bonus tracks. Often the mantra for punk and hardcore has been get in, bludgeon the listener, and get out while their head's still spinning, which Agnostic Front made very clear over 30 years ago with Victim in Pain. That being said, though, that's not exactly the template that Ringworm adhered to on Snake Church. After the title track, there's 2 more thrashy cuts, Brotherhood in the Midnight Sun and Fear the Silence, and then 2 that lean more hardcore, Black Light of a Living Ghost and Destroy or Create, but then they shake things up quite a bit with the track Shades of Blue. This track is 4 minutes and 30 seconds long, which is an eternity for this style, and it's this sludgy, doomy, almost like intermission of sorts because it's right smack dab in the middle of the track list, and it's surrounded by blistering tempos in both directions. This song is not only a breath of fresh air, though, but it's one of my very favorites. The rest of the tracks on this record are pretty ADD in terms of switching up riffs and grooves, but Shades of Blue is able to ride this one really mean riff for almost the whole song, yet continue to command your attention, thanks in part to James Bullock, aka Human Furnace, whose screams are particularly visceral on here, and also the band throw these totally sinister guitar harmonies on top of the main groove, as well as the outro, which helps close the first half of this record out in an epic way. In a way, Shades of Blue is the most important moment in the track list because it gives this album character and rounds it out a little bit. And then after Shades of Blue, which is effectively the middle point, there are a couple of highlights on the back end of this record, although it's not as strong as the first half. But the song Apparition is downright vicious. It starts with these trading guitar harmonies that definitely bring Slayer to mind. And then in the riff department, there's just a lot to like here. There's a lot of pedal tone metalcore riffing that goes on that's very catchy. I also really dig the closing track on here, Temple of the Wolves, which allows drummer Ryan Steigerwald to showcase his prowess quite a bit. There's a lot of fast double bass bursts and double bass runs on this thing, and there's a groove that never really quite feels like it settles in because there's so many different fills and changes in this song, and that's the exact loosely structured, like I said, ADD vibe that gives hardcore and its more extreme mutations like grindcore its appeal. One big praise I have for this thing is how beautifully Ed Stevens' punchy bass lines cut right through this mix. As I was note-taking for this thing, I had a comment on almost every track about a cool bass line or a cool bass fill or section that really jumped out at me, and frankly, I think it helps keep Snake Church from sounding like another overproduced metalcore record that buries the fucking bass guitar. I should particularly draw attention to this one section in the song Black Light of a Living Ghost, which is otherwise a fairly non-essential track, but there are a couple measures here where the other band members drop out, and you get a tasty, high-register bass lick right up front, which is really exciting. So yeah, there is a lot to enjoy here, but you can't give this album too many points in the originality department. It's decidedly one-dimensional, which is totally fine and to be expected, frankly, but being hit with the same thing repeatedly does create a bit of wear and tear, especially on the back end of this record. The track Believer, for instance, starts with this really catchy riff that has almost like a silly bounce to it that I love. But after that first 20 seconds of that first riff, the song is monotonous, it's forgettable. I couldn't tell you 1 second that sticks out to me after that first 20 seconds of that first riff. It just doesn't quite meet the standards that are set by pummeling riff fests like the title track or Fear the Silence. The track after Believer, Razor and the Knife, is perhaps my least favorite on the record. Every time I've listened through Snake Church, these are the pair of tracks, Believer and Razor and the Knife, where I sort of start to tune the record out a little bit. But my main issue with Razor and the Knife is actually the guitar solo. Now, Snake Church is littered with guitar solos that generate fairly mixed results, but Razor and the Knife is an instance where the guitar solo does absolutely nothing to develop the song. It feels like a placeholder between two dull ideas. The guitar solo on Black Light of a Living Ghost is another example of a guitar solo that just is kind of there to fill a void. But some solos are really well placed, like on the awesome song Innocent Blood, where the guitar solo is like the perfect segue from this fast-paced assault down to a slow, deliberate breakdown. The lyrics on Snake Church, not really a strong point for me. The title track, for instance, features lyrics that are sort of vague and really just feel like cool combinations of words. Like there's the line, "See the vultures circle round, feeding off the dead, an ocean turning red, eternally you search." They also use "rise" in that song a bunch of times, which is a cliche and a half. My favorite lyric is probably on the song Innocent Blood, where right before the guitar solo, this really cool line is squeezed in. "No act of defiance can hold back the flood, only the spilling of innocent blood." Pretty cool. But there's nothing to necessarily latch onto in the lyrical themes here. Ringworm aren't political like Napalm Death or self-empowering like Hatebreed, so the enjoyment of this record is ultimately in the snappy, in-your-face musical partnership of metal and hardcore. And they do deliver on that. Overall, I think Snake Church rips. It's not going to break any new ground or convert the non-faithful, but it's an awesome listen if you're looking for a metalcore record that truly is an audible fusion of metal and hardcore and not just a fucking groove metal record with a couple breakdowns. Snake Church gets a 7 out of 10 from me. As always, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, or shoot me a message so we can continue to talk music, and I'll see you guys soon.